The world can seem upside down at times, which has set me on a journey in search for love, truth, and ultimately personal freedom. I'm on a mission to help people find peace and healing so that each of us as individuals and ultimately the collective can be free from whatever keeps us stuck and skews our view of just how beautiful this life can be. Welcome to the Mack Show. Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome back to another episode of the Mack Show. I am Mack. Thank you for joining me. I'm really excited to bring this episode. I know the episodes have been a little bit sporadic. I've been going through a lot, and someday I hope to no longer say that and qualify these episodes and qualify the life that I'm going through with. I've been going through a lot because I know everyone's going through a lot. But that said, today's episode is really beautiful. I have Mackenzie on, who is a breathwork facilitator, and she reached out to me because she had someone reach out to her and start working with her after, I guess, listening to me. And so I saw her content and I said, I'd love to have you on the show. We have a really fascinating conversation, and really this episode is a reminder that everything that we are seeking externally is found within. And I have another episode coming out next week, and you're going to hear something even more profound about the answer within. So this narrative and this truth is bubbling up to the surface so that we can all play with it and experience it and know that the truth, who we are, divinely created, made perfect and beautiful, in honor and love, carries with us all that we need. And part of it, and a big reason, is having breath in our lungs, the neshama, the breath of God, our soul inside of us, connected to our breath. And Mackenzie, who goes by the Connected Woman on Instagram, shares her journey and how breath not only liberated her, but all those that she works with. So I'm excited to bring this episode to you. And Sister Megan, thank you, and everyone enjoy. All right, brothers and sisters, like I just shared, it's amazing to get messages from out of the blue that are so divinely timed and feel like a God wink. And Megan, you sent me one of those messages, and I really appreciate it. Like I told you before we started recording, I've been doing this work for so long. It's like you put it out in the world with the best intention and the highest love, and then let it land where it's supposed to land. And then it was nice, though, to get a message back that it's made an impact in someone's life. So I wanted to say thank you for coming on, and thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, I'm so glad I sent that message. It did feel so divinely timed and placed. So I'm like really looking forward. I'm very interested and like where this podcast goes, because it just feels like we were just placed right in front of each other.
I love it. Well, thank you for coming on. And I have talked quite a bit about my breathwork experiences. I had heard when I started down the transformational healing journey in my own life and leaving institution of religion and kind of the old framework that I had come from, and really in pursuit of healing and really searching for unconditional love. And in that search for unconditional love, finding it in certain groups and spaces. And I heard about breathwork for the first time in my life. I'm like, breathwork? Like, what is this thing? And heard about the holotropic breathwork or different breathwork. And then I got into Wim Hof, and he has his own method of breathwork. And I'll tell you, the first time I had done breath work and as more of a grounded, more like yogic practice, calming and grounding and counting. But when I did like real holotropic breath work and went on the other side where I thought I was going to like black out unconscious, and then I clicked into one of the most profound psychedelic experiences I've ever had, ever. And even right now in this moment, the healing that happened from that, the experience that I had where I was the Matrix movie made sense. More like it was such a profound experience, all from the body that we carry around and the air that we breathe. And so, anyway, that's been my experience. So I'm so excited to hear your journey and how you got into it. So before I guess you share about breathwork, tell us about you and your journey and how you got into this work.
Yeah. Excuse me. And I'd just like to say, like, first, like, who knew that breathing had the capacity to like trip us out? Like, just
Right.
we'll get into that, but I'm excited just because of like how powerful breath work is. But um my story, I feel like we're kindred spirits here. Like it really begins like in my childhood. So my story starts with both my parents had committed suicide separately. I know. I always thought, like, what are the odds? Like, I'd love to, not that I'd love to, you know what I mean here, but
Sure,
I would
but
love
yeah,
to
who
meet
else
someone
out
else
there?
who, yeah,
Right.
right. So if anyone's listening and they have the similar story, I would just love to connect. But
Mm.
at 12 years old really was like the pinnacle point of my life. Everything changed. So when my dad passed, I was also introduced to a healing modality that was just so weird and so freaky back in the
Mm.
day. I was teaching it, I was from learning this healing modality at an after school program, and they shut it down because they thought it was witchcraft.
Mm. Yeah.
If anybody has any guesses what this healing modality is, it was Reiki. So it's so funny to see how far things have come. You know, like everybody knows Reiki now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also,
And
yeah,
actually, for those who
yeah.
don't, you want to explain Reiki?
Yeah, so it's an ancient Japanese healing art where um you know, it's kind of this like it's passed down through like a lineage where you have this kind of initiation where you kind of reawaken this healing
Yeah.
ability, and that's where you use like the energy from your hands.
Yeah.
All of us have it really. If you stump your toe or you have your like a headache, you know, you use your hands, right, to put
Yes.
on your
Yes.
head and your toes. So it's using that the healing energy.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yes.
And real quick, it's so funny. And I don't want to interject too much, but because I want to hear your story, but
Yeah.
I get trolled. If I ever get trolled by anyone, it's always Christians. And I got trolled hard by this guy the other day, and I was like, "It's so interesting." And I didn't feel triggered. It was the first time I think I was just like neutral on it, or first time in a while. I was like, interesting. But I'm sure it's the Christians narrative thought it was witchcraft, and yet in church, growing up in church, like put your hands out to pray for someone or everyone's that's the exact same practice, only it's an accepted in a collective in that group. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. And I love that you brought that up actually, because my daughter is like coming into church. Like I grew up going to the church, and I remember just looking at my mom and I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. And she goes, okay. And that's it. And I remember like my friends when I was that age, they're like, oh, well, you do Reiki. That's not accepted. And I was like, can't we just like
Yeah.
just accept each other? Like, you know, I'm like, it's all going right. We're all going to the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
source, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Um,
So I didn't mean to cut you off. So they canceled the
yeah.
after school program.
Yeah, because they thought it was witchcraft, which
Yeah.
it just shows you how much changed. And now, like that was what I had available to me was Reiki. And now the best tool I have is hypno breath work. But I had my cousin step in, and he taught me things like black holes and Leonardo da Vinci and
Mm.
Shakespeare. I can't talk today. I'm just really excited.
Yeah.
And sacred geometry. So I had this cocktail in my life. I had these influences. And what Reiki did was open up all these doors to other ways of thinking and being and other healing modalities. And my cousin opened up my mind to question the world around me. So everything really changed. I really know the trajectory of my life. If I didn't have these influences, I probably would have just been quite, I'm gonna be very frank in my language, but
Yeah.
quite just like dumb and numb,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
For sure.
Yeah. And then so the early part of my years, I just like consumed as many self-help books or documentaries or seminar, you know, whatever I could get my hands on as far as like self-help goes. Because I didn't want to have the same fate as my dad.
Yeah.
And then 21, pregnant, my first child, my mom committed suicide. And then I was like, okay, I now need to walk the talk. I need to take all of that information that I've gathered and actually integrate it and embody it. And that's the journey that I've been on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How old's your first kid?
She's 13 and
Wow.
one hell of a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. In That's so interesting that, yeah, if anyone's listening, if you know anyone that both parents have chosen out, um,
So it's
how
interesting,
wild. I
Lucas.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
share more.
Yeah. So I get people that kind of just like that have that reaction. They're just like, wow, like I'm so sorry. And I'm actually writing a book on this where I talk about people's experience when I share, and I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm actually at the point where I can say now
Mm,
that my parents' suicides have now become the greatest gift of my life.
wow. Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
lot of healing
Absolutely.
that's happened.
100%.
um,
100%. Yes. Yes. At what point did it stop being a reflection of you, or that you took the identity of them? Did it ever feel like a rejection to you?
No,
Yeah.
no. I feel like I really need to share kind of my perspective. And I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of this was the healing and the influence of these mentors and teachers that
Mm,
came in at the right time to say the right thing, you know? Like I knew it wasn't about me. I knew that their struggles were far beyond anything that I could
amazing.
comprehend,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because everything inside of us is designed to survive,
Yeah.
right?
Did so were did you grow up? You say you grew up in church. Were your parents both in that world? Did you come from that world when they were together?
Yeah, a little bit. My parents had divorced, I think, when I was 9 or
Got
8
it.
or
Okay.
something like
So
that.
they were
But I
already
think,
separated.
yeah, I
Wow.
think my mom more or less went into the church because she grew up like heavily Catholic and just was kind of
Mhm.
she moved and I think was looking for more community. And I was just like, this didn't hit. It didn't feel right.
Hmm.
But I understood like kind of like where they were coming from. So like I feel what they speak about in my heart, but intellectually, I'm just like, I just don't. It
Hmm.
doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Amazing. So so you're pregnant and your mom leaves. Where did you turn? Or what did you look for when you said you had to start walking the talk? What was your first step into this world?
I looked to my belly, this like big
Mhm.
growing belly. And I knew I was going to bring a baby into the world. It was really interesting. I was like grieving, but I also had this like excitement,
Hmm.
um, all this to look forward to. And I knew that I was going to have to like give this my best for
Hmm.
this baby that I'm going to bring into the world. So I just like poured all of my attention and love into my little girl. And it was the most, you know, idealistic, like mother-daughter bond, really beautiful, like childhood that I was able to give her for the like the
Hmm.
first her first formative years. And I think it probably was from the like the grief, the loss.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have your baby and you're a mom. Your mom has just ended her life. So now you're in this generational, literal transformation of like you are now the head of this line. Do you have grandparents? Were they around?
Lucas,
Talk
I
to me. Talk to me.
I was 21 living on Murder Mountain in California. Like they made a documentary. I haven't watched the documentary. But I guess they made a documentary on Murder Mountain. I can't even remember like the actual name of the mountain, but like it was insane. There was like drugs and guns. It was like the Wild West. Like it was like drug lord took
Wow.
me and my little baby on this mountain in a year off the grid,
What?
um, surrounded by criminals and drugs. It was insane. And I just remember being like, she was a year old, and I'm like, I need to get out of here. And I
What
literally,
brought you there in the first place?
my daughter's father,
Yeah.
I followed
Okay.
him. I was just like, okay, like um, I was so young. I was just like, yeah, wherever you want to go, I'll follow you. And my gut, like I learned some important lessons.
Yes.
And my gut told me first. So I will never forget that.
I just um I just posted or I just shared the story today and said if it feels off, it is.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You saw it? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you feel out of place, you are. If it feels wrong, don't do it. If your body says no to someone, a situation, or a place, leave immediately. Your body is the first to know. Your mind is the last to accept. Trust your gut feeling deep down. You already know.
Yeah. 100%.
What a
It's just a matter of
hard, it's been
listening.
a hard
Yeah.
lesson for so
Yeah.
many. And that's, I think, true. Why so many people have gut health problems is because so much
Mm.
trauma and we actually don't know how to listen to our gut because our guts are so unhealthy.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I also feel like we're just culturally, socially,
Yeah.
we're kind of gaslighted out of like listening to our guts,
Yes.
our gut
Yes.
feelings. Yeah.
Amazing. So where do you go from Murder Mountain?
So I grabbed my baby, I packed a suitcase, and I left. I left my property, and my partner at the time followed me back a few months later. And we had a home in New Hampshire, and I
Wow.
took up roots there, and I tried to actually bring Reiki back to the place that I was taught. And it's just so interesting how things evolved. I had my baby in my arms,
Mm,
and I like went back to this place, and I was all new staff, and I was telling them about my experience with Reiki and learning it at such a young age and how important that was. And I was so excited. And they looked at me and they're like, that's really great, but we can't have the kids touch each other. First of all, you don't actually have to touch anybody when it
right.
comes to Reiki. You kind of just hover. You can do it long distance. But
Yeah.
I just realized in that moment, I was like, I'm in the wrong place. If
Mm,
if that's your very first concern. So I just walked out, and
mm.
I had a my first around that time I had my first hypnosis session. I think I was just curious.
Yeah.
That like I remember blew my mind. And I thought that was so cool. So I went and became a hypnotist.
Amazing.
And that was really difficult for me to like get that ball rolling.
Hmm.
And
I
I just, yeah.
I have to say while you're shared, because I don't know, because maybe it's freshly imprinted of this guy trolling me, this Christian guy, and then
Mm,
sharing this what you did about why it got shut down originally. There's a verse in the Bible that says, to the Jews it became a Jew, to the Gentiles it became a Gentile, that I may win some to the Lord. And I've wondered often, like, what does that actually mean? And I've said this on this podcast more times than probably anyone wants to hear, but I'll say it again. A.W. Tozer, this old this Christian mystic, this brilliant mind, wrote over 100 books, some classics. He said, "A man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with an argument."
mm,
And all I feel like I'm faced with are people with arguments, not based in any experience. And then I also have wondered what the line is. It's not like I have to experience everything to know. There's certain things that I think maybe we're not, I don't need to kill someone to know that taking someone's life is
yeah.
is not right. Um, However, there are so many beautiful experiences that when we know them first person, no one's rhetoric or argumentative logic matters. When you experience Reiki and you have this release, or when you do breath work or hypnosis, the first time I did hypnosis, I'm like, this is incredible. In fact, I said, I did past life regression, and she asked what my name was, and I said I did not say what I knew the name was because the name was recognizable, and I thought it was like, oh, it was like an ego to say that or something.
Yeah.
So I didn't say it. And she said the name without me saying the name. I was like, holy, like, this is incredible. And anyway, there's just so many affirmations of how beautiful, I guess ultimately, there's so much beauty that we are connected to at all times. And when we're so myopic or it's so squeezed down to this is only the right way or the only way, we miss that we are part of this incredibly complex and beautiful design that we're experiencing every day.
Yeah, absolutely. When I go back to my story when I was 12,
Mm,
what I say is, the message that I learned at that moment in time was that, like, yes, there is great misery, pain, and suffering, darkness, right? But there is also great opportunity for growth and healing,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we're talking about this because I had at work today, the president of the company said, I really want you to practice your influence, being influential and influencing people. And I was like, that's interesting. And I walked out of his office and it was a great meeting. And I was like, what is he saying? And my wife said this to me the other day. She said, when you're, and I don't mean this in an ego sense, but like when my charm is like come to its end and people don't agree with what I'm sharing, she's like, you have to go beyond that and really make a compelling case. And I think this is what the president was saying to me today. You got to work on your influence. So anyway, I left the meeting and I laughed because when I was in therapy, after my whole world detonated like an atomic bomb and
Mhm.
all the flashbacks and all the horrific abuse. And I was like trying to process this all. And I didn't want to be anything like my dad. My dad's an incredibly charming, charismatic, and
Mm.
an incredibly good actor, and people believe him. So I asked the therapist, what's the difference between manipulation and influence? Because my dad's incredibly manipulative, and I want nothing ever to be like that. But I have traits that I see are so similar. And the therapist said to me, he goes, one word, intention.
Yep.
And I was like,
Yep.
that's so good.
Yep.
Yes, intention. And why I bring this up is because I've answered this question in my mind because the Bible says, suffer thou not a witch to live and all this stuff and witchcraft and all I mean, just crazy stuff. But I think it's not being um, put in context properly. Meaning, I think witchcraft is not a modality so much as it's the intention of the person understanding the spiritual gifts. If I'm doing the same spiritual gifts, but trying to manipulate, take control, coerce, whatever, profit off someone else's vulnerability, then absolutely, that is not that's not the high vibe being that we want to be around. But to use those same gifts to bless, heal, love, liberate, hold space for, those are the same, I guess, gifts, but one's intention is to bless and free others, and the others is to take from others. And so I think that's how I've really squarely feel clear
Yeah.
on just because it looks the same, the difference is intention.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I feel like there's so much clarity in that. It's kind of like the difference between, like, I was actually thinking about this today, like kindness and being nice, right? They can
Yeah.
kind of look the same a little bit on the surface, right? But what's behind it?
Yes. Yeah. I think kindness is intention. Nice is like default, and then kindness is intention. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
okay. So let's keep this journey. This is a fascinating story. Um, okay. So you walk out of this Reiki practice that was so influential years previous, and then you go into hypnosis. And what happened during your hypnosis?
I like barely remember what happened, but I remember like coming out of it. And this is so interesting because I've never described anything like this, but what I felt like I was like stuck to the wall. Like you could peel me off the wall.
Mm,
And I'm like, well, what does that even mean? Because I've never used that kind of language to describe things, but I was just so like elevated. I've never experienced something so not out of body, but it was just so what's the word? It was just very different in my
Yeah.
consciousness. Yeah.
That's
Um, yeah.
And then, like, do you get downloads, or like what happens after or during these experiences? Like, how do you feel like you leave different? Is it the knowing that the experience was so impactful?
Yeah, I believe that's what happens. That's kind of what happens when like I share breath work with people. They're just kind of like their mind is blown. Like I've never experienced anything like that. Right. And so that was my impact. And then of course I'm like, I need to like do this myself. But that one didn't stick for me. I couldn't quite get it to work. That wasn't like the tool, the
Mm.
modality, the vehicle
Wow.
that I should have been working with. But it's still like, but I still loved just like being on the discovery, on the
Yeah.
journey of like finding all these really incredible healing modalities. There's not one way. There's so many
Yes.
tools available to us. It's finding the right one that works for each person.
Yes. And so eventually, like, how did you find breath work?
Yeah, I love that story. So fast forward, what, another decade. I'm sitting in my little cabin, which I'm in right now.
Mm.
And I've gone through a couple of separations. And I'm sitting in my kitchen. And I just remember being so soul hungry, soul hungry. I was like, I need more in my life. I need
Mm.
deeper connection. I need deeper conversations. I need to like just connect. I
Mm.
need something to like really like make me feel alive.
Yeah.
And just the way the universe works. I'm sitting in my kitchen, my phone's in front of me on the counter, and boop, boop, like up pops this event fit for service that Aubrey Marcus holds in Austin, Texas.
Love it.
And it was kind of pricey. And I was like, that's kind of all this is like how it's just so funny how like similar like stories are, it's like kind of all the money I had left, right? Of
Yeah.
course, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is how these stories go.
Yes,
I took the money
absolutely.
I had left, put it into this trip, and I next thing I know, I'm in a room full of 50 plus people, and Aubrey had flew in some world-renowned breathwork practitioners, and we start the breathing. And I start to hear people cry and
Mm.
scream and roar, and the girl behind me is having one heck of an experience. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what her like. I'm like, do I censor myself here? I'm sure you can use your
Oh
imagination.
yeah,
But I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, what is going on? I'm like, this is a total madhouse.
Right.
And
Right.
I love it. I was like, I am so at home here.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, like people are having these real, raw human experiences. And I
Mm.
just love that. And I was like, okay. I was so like, my awareness was so like in the room and
Mm.
taking in everything around me. And I was like, well, I want this. So I decided to drink the Kool-Aid and kind of
Yeah.
go within
Yeah.
and let myself have it. And like everybody else was permission. I feel like that's really important is that that's the beauty of a group session is when someone else is brave enough to just like let it out and you stop making the judgments.
Yeah.
It's permission and it allows you to go deeper in exploring yourself. So
Mm.
I did. And what ended up happening was like this inner goddess started to like evoke and come out.
Mm.
And eventually I ended up kind of crouched. I sat up and I was crouched. And when you do breath work, I don't know if you've experienced this, but your hands cramp.
Mm.
My hands are cramped so bad.
You think-
And I'm like, my hair is in my face, kind of a hot mess. And Aubrey comes over and he kneels down and he's right in my face. And I pull the hair out of my face and he whispers in my ear and he goes, rise, goddess, rise. Which
Mm.
is so like of all things he could have said to me, he literally said the thing I was experiencing.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
like, okay, Aubrey. And I pulled my hair out of my face and I stood up and I shook my hair
Mm.
out and I stood there like fully embodied
Mm.
as what I would know or sense to be a goddess. And that was just like so cool.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it just really threw me back. I was like, this is like the coolest experience ever.
Mhm.
And I'm sober.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So then I went home and I told all my girlfriends about my experience. And I was like, does anybody have a breathwork practice or is anybody doing this? Like, I'd never really heard about it.
Mhm.
And all of my girlfriends were like, no, but I want whatever you had. And I was like, yeah, you do. So it turns out that my cousin's best friend, Francesca, is the founder of Hypno Breathwork.
Wow.
So she connected us, and I ended up getting the training. And like, I feel like my life has finally like become the life that I hoped and dreamed it would be because of this practice.
Mm.
Embodiment,
Yeah.
integration,
Yeah.
healing, releasing,
Yeah.
all the
Gives me
things.
chills in my back. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. 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 Had you ever done plant medicine? Was that ever part of your journey?
So it's interesting because I've been studying ayahuasca since 2012,
Hmm.
before like people like before it really became what it is today.
Yeah.
And I found it fascinating, but I'm not called to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's so you don't have anything to because I've gone down every, journey space and it was tremendously healing, but there is something so refreshing and different from the breath work. Although some of the deepest healing was from my breath work. It's like a different, so I was gonna say like you can breathe. It's like a clean, and I don't think
Mm,
that's dirty.
yeah,
I don't mean, but there's just something
I
that's
know what
not,
you mean.
it's just lighter.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. Yeah, and I know why you asked me that question because I've had a fair amount of people come up to me after a class or a session and tell me that their breathwork experience was comparable to ayahuasca.
yeah,
And
yes,
I was just like, what? Like
yes,
all the time I've been studying
yes,
this, I was like, I would have never
yes.
thought that that was comparable. And I know what you mean by cleaner.
Mhm.
And I understand.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like psilocybin, first of all, like sharing, like all these, I I've gone down every different modality of healing that I could find or have access to. Um, and at different layers, like peeling back the onion, like the outer onion, like getting down to the very core, I couldn't logic my way through. So I went to experiential leadership healing workshops, and then from there went into the psychedelic world to heal. And that's like where I was able to really focus on healing the sexual trauma that I had
Mm,
experienced. And I also found breath work during that time. And so it's interesting, like to have the contrast of both. I think, like, I'll just use this example or share people listening, like ayahuasca, you can stay. So I will compare like ayahuasca and breath work more than like psilocybin and breath work. Psilocybin, although it's been a tremendous healer for me too, it moves very quickly. So
mm,
you're like there. I mean, it moves at a pace that I think if people don't have an integration practice, it's like can get lost in like, well, what is this whole thing mean? But in the breath work, you are there with whatever download or you're, I don't know, it stays. You're like in this spatial, and I'll share my experience real quick. And I want to hear more of your journey. But in the movie The Matrix, where Neo in the second Matrix is in the train station, which is neither in the Matrix or out of the Matrix, and he's stuck in this loop in the train. He tries to get off the train, and he's back in the same spot. And it's the in between.
mm,
And I hadn't thought about the in between. I hadn't thought about the movie The Matrix for a while leading up to this breathwork session. But in the breathwork session, I met my dad's soul,
mm,
who hadn't been in his body since he was 6 years old. and it was stuck in the in between. And his
Wow.
soul apologized for what his body did to me
Yeah.
in this world. And I mean, I could cry right now, like
Yeah.
sob, like
Yeah.
soul cried this. And it was like I had this experience with my father's soul, who is not the man that I know or have never known in this physical plane, but somewhere this like reconciliation happened and I was able to heal so much and it liberated me from so much. And I realized, oh, his soul's in the in between. And I didn't understand what that meant except for the movie The Matrix, where I used the example of like Neo in the in between the train station and just deeply profound.
That's the word. Yeah. I was like profound. It's like right on my
Yeah.
tongue. Yeah. So profound. It's so neat. Like I have a lot of people that when we do sessions, that's on our we'll be on like a particular journey. But so often I hear people like my loved one who passed away came to me
Mm,
during that session. And I
mm,
just think that's so cool. Like how breath work, it's like the door is wide open. Like you can do anything, access anything with breath work. It's so phenomenal. Like you just start breathing and then you'll know, like the breath will show you, will guide you to what is right under the surface that needs attention or healing or whatever needs to be released. Like,
mm.
your profound experience.
Yeah. It's amazing. It really is.
So cool.
What? So, I don't know. What are some stories that have stood out to you from people you've worked with? And
Yeah.
also, you could work virtually, right, with people
Yeah.
because that's why I did mine virtually. I had the
Yeah.
laptop on the ground. This woman was coaching
Yep.
through it. But yeah, what are some stories that you can share of just different healing?
Yeah. I have an older woman, she's in her 80s, who
Wow.
did her first breathwork session with me. And apparently she said she's never cried before. And I'm thinking like, how does one like just never cry? I think of a child, like,
Right.
so that just seems strange to me. But her first breathwork session, she didn't sob, but like just these tears, these beautiful tears rolled down her face. And she came to me, she was like riddled with anxiety. And just with like her first, second, and third session, she's turned so much around. Like her physical pain has pretty much gone away. Like the chiropractor, she would visit a chiropractor and he's like, I don't, like, what are you doing? Like, I don't need to keep correcting the same things anymore. Like your body's healing.
Wow.
It's just like so many things. Just the experiences that people have in these sessions like are truly so profound and deep. Like I hold people, if it's in person, of course, I'm
Yeah.
holding people in complete and utter breakdown, but
Mm,
in the most beautiful way. Like,
mm,
right, I think you
yeah.
hear the saying, like there's beauty in the
Yeah.
breakdown,
Oh,
because
yeah.
when that breakdown happens, then you can rebuild pieces in a more coherent,
Yes.
healthier way.
Yes.
Yeah,
Amazing. Amazing.
yeah.
So it was your cousin's
Best
friend,
friend.
best
Yeah.
friend. How amazing. And you never knew that that's what they did. Had you met them before?
Like I knew that she was doing breath work or whatever. Like she was living out in Dallas. My cousin and Francisca's now in San Diego, I believe.
Ah, nice.
So we just did a training online,
Amazing.
and her process is so genius. Like when I first did breath work, it was just the breathing, and I was left very like, what just happened to me? Like there was a lot I just didn't understand. I knew something big happened to me, but I didn't know what. And it felt like it took days for me to process
Hmm.
the experience.
Yeah.
Hypno breathwork specifically is brilliant in the way that like it's so specific, the journey it takes you on. So people come to me with like whatever they want to work on. And in the session, we breathe for about 15 minutes, let the breath work its magic.
Hmm.
And then I bring up, whatever it is that we're working on. So I bring it up to the forefront to be cleared and
Hmm.
processed. And then we reprogram the subconscious mind to something far more supportive.
Yeah.
And this is what I love. Towards the end, I ask your subconscious, what is your next action step to creating the life you want?
Mm.
That's huge, right,
No.
Lucas?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like with Reiki,
Good.
all these healing modalities, they're really great to help us like heal,
Yes.
but also what happens after? What's next?
That's right.
So
That's
you're
right.
getting these deep intuitive action steps, deep
Mm.
intuitive hits of where to go and how to take your life because it's not linear. You know, we've been pounding our heads against the wall to like figure things out with the conscious,
Yeah.
but the subconscious has the blueprint,
Mm.
right? So you're able to access that. That is huge. That is like the golden nugget that you're able to receive out of these sessions. And then we end it with the most blissful, euphoric meditation, which I just love. Just to
Mm.
like, you know, cherry on top, seal it up.
I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really without the ego being dropped, and breath work is this modality that can drop the ego. We can't think our way out of where we are because it's the same thinking that got us where we are cannot get us out of where we are. And I think so many people, like you're saying, banging the head or trying to figure out a way, and we'll listen to more podcasts or read more books or and all that stuff is great, but you cannot logic your way out of the ego's grip on
Yeah.
your identity because the ego is meant to keep us safe. And it's like you can't amputate your own
Mm,
body. You can't drop the ego enough to let the subconscious, which is connected at all times to God, to divine, to truth, to
yeah.
love and light, and to allow that through. And it's interesting, like for me, I've been for a long time, I was all about ego death and ego
Mhm.
death, and you have to kill the ego. But I've come to this place now where I'm really thankful. I thank the ego, and when I lead men's
Mm,
work, and we really thank the ego for protecting the little boy or the little girl that we once were, the inner child. Like it's done its job. It's just tired
yeah.
and it's ready to take a break. And so if we can find a modality that can help us drop the ego and just be in that safe space to allow what needs to come through or come out or come in to happen, that is where like true beauty emerges.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this practice. It's just, I'm so grateful for it. And I feel like this is our like new cutting edge
Hmm.
practice right now that we have available to us.
Um, for so how does it work? How can people reach out to you and work with you? And I guess how does the process work?
Yeah. Well, I've got my website. You can find me there. I'm sure we can provide links,
Yeah.
meganlmackenzie.com. And, you know, you can pick from my menu of what you want. I've got, you know, one-off sessions if you want to try it and find out what all the fuss is about, or if you're like, I am just done
Mm,
and you want to like be held accountable and have that integration and that healing and the release and the growth and all that stuff. I have my longer coaching programs and I'm kind of touring New England right now. I love my favorite is in person group sessions.
mm,
That's my personal favorite because I love the energy of, you know, the room.
amazing.
Yeah, and I'm doing some I've got some group classes coming online for Zoom. Yeah, like I said, in like you said, in person or Zoom,
Yeah,
it all is the same as long as you can hear me and you're breathing, that's all you need.
I love it. How about your daughter? Has she gotten into this work?
So it's interesting because she's, you know, on her own healing journey as well. And anytime she goes to anybody else, they're like, "Oh, breathing would really help." And she just rolls her eyes because it's mom, right?
Yeah,
And it's funny, like with her friends, she'll like make jokes about mom and her breathing. But when she's like out and about and she's around adults, she speaks so highly of this practice and of myself. So I'm like, okay, like, thank you. So one day, I think she'll give it a try, but
yeah,
it's
for sure.
mom,
It's
and so it's
no,
not cool right now.
yeah, no, I get it. Um, I'm still amazed that both your parents did one like just to bring it back to
Yeah.
your mom really did your dad's passing impact your mom? Or did
Mm.
she, like, how did that impact her, do you think?
That's what we thought for a long time, was that maybe it was they were separate, they were divorced a long, long time ago. She had,
Mhm.
found love and all that stuff. I it's just one of those freaky things. She just got sucked into that hole.
Yeah.
And I I know this may be kind of, some people may not believe in this kind of stuff, but anytime I like speak to a psychic medium and they
Mhm.
channel her in, the first thing she always does is like apologize profusely. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done it. It was a mistake. And I'm like, if she can hear me, I'm like, you have nothing to apologize for. Like, there's nothing to forgive. Like, I never even held that
Mhm.
against you. Um,
Man,
and yeah,
what an incredible heart that you have. What incredible
thanks.
legacy that you're living out. Incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Life. It's so wild. We never know this what people go through, what people have come from. And that's why I love this podcast so much is I often when I share solo episodes, I say that I'm sharing my journey with you so you don't feel alone in your journey. Like we
Mm,
are all on this journey. And one of my favorite quotes is Ram Dass's quote, we're all just walking each other home.
yeah.
And it's such a beautiful sentiment. It's like, golly, everyone is just playing out this role to experience whatever they came here to experience. And I
Yeah.
think often I've been really, I'm on this 8 years ago, I'm experiencing things again that I experienced 8 years ago. So it's like this loop or cycle. It's come back in different perspectives, but same issues. Um, and I'm only bringing this up is that everyone's experiencing something, and I think so often when we go to work or driving and we see other people in cars and just like, oh, those are just people. I'm the only one with issues, but everyone has
Mm,
issues and
hmm.
everyone's struggling. Everyone's trying to figure this thing out. Um, and one of the journeys that I was at, I saw also I got pulled up and I was right next to God. And God showed me this conveyor belt, that infinite, as far as I could see, conveyor belts of bodies, and they were all the ancestral lines.
Mm,
And the bodies were moving all towards this light, kind of like the movie Soul, where they're all moving towards this light, only it was as far as I could see conveyor belts of bodies. And God asked, which one do you want to jump into? And he showed me that whatever one I jumped into, what would happen to that body, but also showed me the ripple effect of all the other conveyor belts, not just the ancestral line. So the baby that jumps into the stillbirth body might devastate the parents, but how the parents react
yes.
would impact the nurse. The nurse then goes home and changes
Yes.
her whole world trajectory to make an impact. Your mom takes her life, but all of a sudden you
Yes.
are now in this podcast speaking to people all over the world about this story. And I'm sure people are like, what? How can you be so calm? How does this grace come forth? All the things. And what I learned from that experience is that every person in our lives, those who have caused us pain, those who have brought pleasure, those who have been neutral, have played the perfect role in our life, and we are to thank them.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that is when you say healing, like, how can you say that? You say, well, how can I say that? Yeah, that is the healing,
Yeah.
is to thank your mom and thank your dad for the gift. I had to thank my dad, thank my mom for the gift because we would not be who we are
Yeah.
without them.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, my message and my hope for people is, I say it's not necessarily like what happened to you, it's what you do with it that
Mm,
matters, right?
yeah.
Because like you said, we all have something,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's like there's a gift wrapped in it, and if you can
Mm,
find it,
mm,
and then and then to pass it on. Like I couldn't just let their tragedy just stay a tragedy. Like there had to be something good to come out of it. So it's like sharing my story and my work and then watching it, that ripple effect. Like I'm so grateful. I like to like no, it's not like it's a suicide anymore for me. It's a sacrifice.
Mm. Man, that's good.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Another quote, he just, as this other guy who was friends with A.W. Tozer, he said, the altar that receives no sacrifice receives no fire.
Mm.
So we want fire, we want this inspiration, we want this light, we want, in Hebrew they call it aish, we want the aish, this fire. But the only way to have a fire is there has to be a sacrifice in the first place. And what a beautiful, instead of suicide, sacrifice, what a beautiful
Yeah.
reframe.
Yeah.
Man, Megan, I'm so honored to have you on the podcast. Thank you. I'm going to make sure I put your website link, your Instagram handle in the show notes. Anything else you want to share with everyone listening?
Oh, it put me on the spot. I shared my golden nuggets. I was happy to share
They're
them. They're
beautiful. They're
sprinkled in
beautiful.
there.
That's good. Well, I'll make sure you have a workshop coming up. Make sure we get that in there. And I just want to say thank you. Thanks for messaging me. Thanks for your sweet soul and the work that you're doing and all the healing you're bringing into this world. And thank you for using the gifts with intention to bless others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm so glad I reached out to you.
Yeah.
It's just such a gift. Thank you so much, Lucas.
Thank you. Well, everyone, please go follow Megan on Instagram. She's such a beautiful soul, as you can see. And this work is important. I have done actually all my breathwork sessions have been virtual. They've been on Zoom by different facilitators, and it's been profound. You don't necessarily have to be in person. It's always great to be in person, but you don't have to be. So if you're not local to Megan, you can still work with her. And I really recommend you being conscious of bringing in your breath and like I just got the chills, bringing in your breath and being conscious in that breathing and open up a new world for yourself. So reach out to Megan and everyone. I send you so much love. This is a bizarre time. I don't know what you're experiencing. I'm experiencing this as just such a bizarre and upside down and also beautiful time. It's not all bad. It's a lot good. It's just both at the same time. I've been sharing with everyone that it feels like the movie. I don't know if you saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, and that title of that movie feels like life right now. But regardless of what you're going through, I send you love. I send you peace. I send you grace. And may the breath within your lungs bring you closer to yourself and closer to the divine love and God who loves you, who is within you and is waiting for you to come back home inside yourself. I am Lucas Mack. This is the Lucas Mack Show, and I'll talk to you on the next episode. Thank you for listening. If you're struggling to break free and need support, go to my website at lucasmack.com. There you'll find resources like videos and ebooks, and also information on how to work with me for coaching. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.